You know that feeling when you open your banking app, look at your account balance, and instead of immediately closing it in horror, like usual, you actually smile. Like you're no longer sitting there calculating, can I afford this coffee? Or, if I buy groceries today, does that mean ramen for the rest of the week? There's a specific number, a financial threshold, where when you hit it, everything changes. Your brain starts operating differently. The way you see money changes. Even the way other people treat you changes. Most financial gurus will tell you that you need $1 million to feel wealthy, or that 6 figures is the magic number. But they're missing something. Here's the reality in 2025. 59% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency expense. $1,000. A car repair, an unexpected medical bill, a broken laptop. More than half the population doesn't have enough. So what's the number that actually matters? $20,000. Not $1 million, not 6 figures. $20,000. And over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you why this number will rewire your brain, transform how you think about money, and open up a completely different world of opportunities that you didn't even know existed. Because this isn't just a number. This is the dividing line between people who will build real wealth and those who will spend their entire lives paycheck to paycheck without understanding why. My name is Pot, and if you want to understand the real mechanics behind wealth building instead of just hoping things will magically improve, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up helping you see money differently. Before we dive into why $20,000 is the real game changer, let me paint you a picture of where most people are right now. 32% of Americans have zero emergency savings. Zero. And for those who do have something saved, the median amount is just $500. That's down from $600 last year. We're actually going backwards. And here's what makes this even more painful. 73% of people say they're saving less now than they were before. Inflation, high interest rates, rising costs. It's not that people don't want to save. It's that the system is making it nearly impossible. But there's something deeper happening here that nobody talks about. Something that goes way beyond just the numbers in your bank account. When you don't have money saved, your brain enters what psychologists call survival mode. And I'm not being dramatic here, this is actual neuroscience. In survival mode, every single financial decision gets filtered through fear and scarcity. You take the first job offer that comes along even if it's terrible because you can't afford to be picky. You stay in situations you hate because leaving feels too risky. You say yes to things you don't want to do because you need the money. This isn't about being practical or responsible. When your brain is in survival mode, it literally cannot think about growth and opportunity. It's like trying to plan a vacation while your house is on fire. Your mental bandwidth is completely consumed by immediate threats and short-term survival. Think about it. If you've got $200 in your checking account and rent is due next week, are you thinking about investing? About starting a side business, about negotiating a raise? No, you're thinking about how to make it to Friday. And here's where it gets even worse. The younger you are, the harder this hits. 42% of Gen Z doesn't have an emergency fund at all. And get this, 27% of Gen Z and millennials who do have emergency savings admitted to using it for vacations or discretionary shopping. Not emergencies. Vacations. This isn't about judging anyone. This is about understanding a behavioral pattern. When you've never experienced true financial security, you don't know how to build it. You don't know what it feels like. So you make decisions that feel good in the moment but keep you trapped in the cycle. Meanwhile, older generations are in a different position. Only 24% of baby boomers have more credit card debt than savings. Why? Because most of them hit that $20,000 threshold decades ago. They know what financial breathing room feels like. They've rewired their brains already. So we've got an entire generation stuck in survival mode, making survival mode decisions, wondering why they can't get ahead. And the answer is simple but not easy. You have to break out of survival mode. And that starts with one number. $20,000. So what actually happens when you hit $20,000? Why is this number so special? Let's start with the research. Vanguard did a study in 2025, and what they found is fascinating. Having just $2,000 in emergency savings increases your financial well-being by 21%. $2,000. That's less than most people spend on a vacation. But when you push that emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for most people lands somewhere around $20,000, you get another 13% boost. So we're talking about a 34% total increase in financial well-being. But here's what the research doesn't capture. The real magic isn't in the percentage points. It's in what happens to your brain. When you cross that $20,000 threshold, suddenly your brain has space to think differently. Instead of asking, how do I survive until next paycheck, you start asking, how can I grow this money? Instead of being reactive to whatever financial crisis pops up, you become proactive about building wealth. You start seeing opportunities instead of just threats. Before, when your car needed repairs, it was a disaster that derailed your entire month. Now it's annoying, but not catastrophic. Your laptop dies. Time to upgrade. Your rent goes up. Maybe it's time to negotiate your salary or look for something better. Even better, you start noticing opportunities that were always there but you couldn't take advantage of before. Your friend mentions they're starting a business and looking for investors. Before, you would have thought, that sounds interesting, and moved on. Now you can actually consider whether it's worth putting $5,000 into it. A great deal pops up on a rental property. Before, you would have scrolled past it and felt a little jealous. Now you can run the numbers and see if it makes sense. But let's talk about the math, because this is where things get really exciting. Let's say you're saving $1,000 every month and earning an 8% return on your investments. Getting to your first $20,000 takes about 19 months of consistent saving and investing. That's a year and a half of disciplined sacrifice and delayed gratification. It's not easy. Most people give up somewhere along the way. But here's the part that will blow your mind. Your second $20,000 doesn't take another 19 months. It only takes about 17 months. Why? Because now you've got that first $20,000 working alongside your monthly contributions, generating its own returns. Think about this for a second. You did the exact same amount of work, saved the same amount of money each month, took the same level of risk with your investments, but you shaved 2 full months off the timeline just because you had more money working for you. That's the power of compound interest starting to kick in. By the time you're going for your third $20,000, the timeline shrinks even more. Your money is doing an increasing share of the heavy lifting while you're putting in the same effort. And when you get to the really big numbers, the acceleration becomes almost comical. Once you hit $400,000 in your investment portfolio, you can generate your next $20,000 in just 5 months. The same amount that took you nearly 2 years to save initially is now happening automatically through your investments. Let me give you a real example to make this concrete. Say you start with a $10,000 initial investment, contribute just $100 per month, and earn an 8% return. After 20 years, you'll have over $101,500. But here's the beautiful part. You only contributed $34,000 of that. The rest, nearly $67,500, came from compound growth. Your money made more money than you did. Now you might be thinking, okay, but wealthy people have access to some secret investments that I don't. And while there is some truth to that at the ultra-high end, it's not what's driving this $20,000 phenomenon. The real secret is much simpler and honestly much more encouraging. It's just basic mathematics working in your favor. When you invest $1,000 and it grows 10% in a year, you make $100. Take that exact same 10% growth rate and apply it to $10,000 and suddenly you're looking at $1,000 in profit. Same investment, same time frame, same level of risk. This is why hitting $20,000 feels like such a turning point. Up until that point, your investment returns feel almost insignificant because you're working with smaller amounts. A 10% return on $2,000 is $200. Nice, but not exactly life-changing. But a 10% return on $20,000 is $2,000. Now we're talking about money that actually matters. When you've got $20,000 sitting in investments earning 8% annually, that's $1,600 flowing into your account over the course of a year without you having to lift a finger. Money you didn't have to earn through your job. Money that showed up because your existing money was working on your behalf. The investment strategy isn't any more sophisticated than what someone with $1,000 can use. You can buy the exact same index funds, use the same brokerages, follow the same basic principles. The only difference is scale. And that scale transforms small percentage wins into real financial progress. But here's the part that most people completely miss, and it might be the most important point in this entire video. When you save $20,000, you've actually accomplished something far more valuable than just accumulating money in a bank account. You've fundamentally rewired your brain and built the most important financial habit you'll ever develop. Think about what it actually takes to save $20,000 if you're starting from zero. Unless you're making ridiculous money, this requires serious discipline. You had to track where every dollar was going. You had to say no to things you wanted so you could set money aside instead. You had to resist the urge to blow your savings on whatever shiny object caught your attention that week. Most importantly, you had to do all of this consistently for months or even years. And here's the kicker. You proved to yourself that you can control your money instead of letting it control you. You became the type of person who can delay gratification when it really matters. That's not just a financial skill, that's a life skill. This identity shift is huge because it affects every financial decision you make going forward. Before you had $20,000 saved, buying a $4 coffee might have required mental gymnastics about whether you could afford it. After you hit $20,000, you're not sweating the small stuff anymore because you know you have your priorities straight. You've proven you can make the big sacrifices when necessary. And here's another psychological shift that happens at this level that most people don't talk about. You start caring less about small expenses and more about big ones. When you're broke, you obsess over every purchase. Should I buy the name brand cereal or the generic version? Is it worth spending $3 on coffee when I could make it at home? Should I get premium gas or regular? These decisions consume mental energy because every dollar feels precious. But when you have a solid financial foundation, you realize these micro decisions are largely irrelevant. The difference between spending $3 on coffee versus making it at home is maybe $1,000 per year if you're really going overboard. That's not nothing, but it's not going to make or break your financial future either. What matters are the big decisions: where you live, what you drive, how much you save, where you invest. These choices can swing your net worth by tens of thousands of dollars over time. So instead of agonizing over whether to buy organic bananas, you focus your energy on optimizing your housing costs, maximizing your income, and making sure your investment strategy is solid. This shift in focus is incredibly liberating because it frees up mental bandwidth for the decisions that actually matter. You stop sweating the small stuff and start thinking strategically about wealth building. Now let's talk about what happens to your career once you hit this milestone. Because this is where things get really interesting. Having $20,000 saved doesn't just change your relationship with money, it changes your relationship with work. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're essentially trapped in whatever job you currently have. Your boss could be terrible, your coworkers could be toxic, the work could be mind-numbing, but you can't leave because you need that next paycheck to survive. This puts you in an incredibly weak negotiating position. You can't ask for a raise because you're afraid they might fire you. You can't push back on unreasonable demands because you need the job more than they need you. You can't explore other opportunities because taking time off for interviews feels too risky. You're stuck, and everyone knows it. But $20,000 changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly you have what I call walking away money. You could quit tomorrow and survive for months while you find something better. This doesn't mean you should be reckless or burn bridges unnecessarily, but it means you're negotiating from a position of strength instead of desperation. And here's what's really crazy. Often you don't even need to use your walking away money. Just having it changes your entire demeanor at work. You become more confident, more assertive, more willing to take on challenging projects. And guess what happens when you show up differently? People notice. Suddenly you're getting better assignments, more recognition, and yes, more money. It's like having a secret superpower that you hope you never have to use. But knowing it's there changes everything about how you operate. The more confident and successful you become at work, the faster you build wealth, which gives you even more options and confidence. It's a positive feedback loop that accelerates over time. But here's where most people mess this up, and I see it constantly. They hit $20,000, feel that psychological shift, and then immediately blow it on something stupid. Maybe they decide they deserve a new car since they've been so disciplined. Or they take an expensive vacation because they've earned it. Or they use it as a down payment on a house they can't really afford. Don't do this. That $20,000 is not a reward for good behavior. It's the foundation of your entire financial future. It's the seed that grows into generational wealth if you're patient enough to let it compound. And this is going to sound harsh, but someone needs to say it. The average person spends more money on their car over their lifetime than it would take to achieve complete financial independence. Between car payments, insurance maintenance, and gas, most people are dropping $600 to $800 every single month on transportation. Over a 40-year period, that's easily $400,000 or more just to get from point A to point B. Meanwhile, they're complaining that they can't afford to save for retirement. Here's the thing that makes this even more ridiculous. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses about 20% of its value. So you're not just spending money, you're actively destroying wealth. Compare that to investing the same amount in a diversified portfolio. Instead of watching your money evaporate, you're watching it multiply. That $30,000 car isn't just $30,000. It's $30,000 that could have grown to over $200,000 in your investment account over 20 years. Suddenly, driving a reliable used car doesn't feel like a sacrifice anymore. It feels like a strategic choice that's funding your future freedom. And here's the beautiful irony. The person driving the flashy new car is probably stressed about money, while the person driving the older Honda is quietly building wealth and sleeping better at night. This mindset shift extends to every major financial decision you make. Housing, education, vacations, hobbies. Everything gets filtered through the lens of opportunity cost. Not in an obsessive way that sucks all the joy out of life, but in a strategic way that ensures you're making intentional choices about where your money goes. And let me tell you something that might surprise you. Once you start thinking this way, you often realize you don't actually want half the stuff you thought you wanted. That bigger apartment. The extra space would be nice, but is it worth delaying your financial independence by 5 years? That expensive hobby? It's fun, but there are probably cheaper ways to get the same satisfaction. This isn't about becoming a penny-pinching miser who never enjoys anything. It's about becoming intentional with your money instead of letting it slip away on things that don't actually matter to you. When you have clear financial goals and understand the power of compound interest, it becomes much easier to distinguish between what you want and what you really want. So how do you actually get to $20,000? Let me give you a practical roadmap. First, automate your savings. 38% of Americans are already doing this, and there's a reason why. When the money leaves your account automatically, you don't have the chance to spend it. Set up a direct deposit that sends money straight to a separate savings account every time you get paid. Second, use a high-yield savings account. Right now in 2025, these accounts are paying around 4 to 5% APY. That's free money just for parking your cash there instead of a regular checking account. Third, start with smaller milestones. Don't focus on $20,000 if that feels overwhelming. Focus on $2,000 first. Remember that $2,000 alone increases your financial well-being by 21%. Then go for 1 month of expenses. Then 3 months. Then 6 months. Fourth, calculate what you actually need. Add up your essential monthly expenses. Rent, food, utilities, transportation insurance. Not the lifestyle expenses. The survival expenses. That's your target. Multiply by 6. That's your $20,000 or whatever your personal number is. Fifth, protect it like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. This is not vacation money. This is not car money. This is not, "I've been good so I deserve a treat" money. This is your foundation, your escape hatch, your ticket out of survival mode. Now let's talk about what happens after you hit $20,000, because this is where the story gets even better. Remember how I said your second $20,000 takes 17 months instead of 19? Well, your third $20,000 takes about 15 months. Your fourth takes 13 months. The timeline keeps shrinking. By the time you hit $100,000, something incredible happens. You start earning around $8,000 per year from your investments alone, assuming that same 8% return. That's $667 every single month without working for it. At $200,000, you're generating $16,000 per year. That's more than the median emergency fund most Americans have in total. Except you're getting it every single year automatically. At $400,000, you're making $32,000 annually from your investments. For many people, that's enough to cover a significant portion of their living expenses. You're approaching the point where work becomes optional, not mandatory. And here's the beautiful part. Each milestone gets easier to reach because your money is doing more of the work. That first $20,000 felt impossible. You were grinding, sacrificing, saying no to everything. But by the time you're going from $380,000 to $400,000, your investments are generating that $20,000 faster than you can save it from your paycheck. This is what wealthy people mean when they say money goes to money. It's not some cosmic conspiracy. It's that having money gives you options, and options create more opportunities to make money. But let's talk about something even more powerful: career compounding. When you have that $20,000 foundation, you negotiate better. Better negotiation leads to higher income. Higher income accelerates your wealth building. Faster wealth building gives you more options. More options lead to better career moves. Better career moves lead to even higher income. It's a compound effect that happens on top of the compound interest. Your career growth and your wealth growth start feeding each other. I've seen this play out hundreds of times. Someone builds their first $20,000. They get more confident. They ask for a raise and actually get it. That extra $10,000 per year in salary accelerates their savings. Within 2 years, they've hit $50,000. Now they're really confident. They start exploring new opportunities. They land a job that pays 30% more. Suddenly, they're saving $2,000 per month instead of $1,000. The acceleration is exponential, not linear. And here's something most people don't think about: the impact this has on the next generation. When you break the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, you're not just changing your life. You're changing your kids' lives, your grandkids' lives. Kids who grow up watching parents make intentional financial decisions learn those patterns. They see delayed gratification in action. They understand that money is a tool, not a source of stress. That $20,000 you're building today, it's not just your emergency fund. It's the beginning of generational wealth. It's the foundation that allows your kids to start their adult lives without crippling student debt. It's the safety net that lets them take risks and pursue opportunities you never could. Think about what it would have meant for you if your parents had given you a $20,000 head start when you turned 25. No debt, no survival mode, just pure opportunity to build from day one. You can be that parent, but it starts with you building your own foundation first. And let's talk about freedom. Real freedom. Not the Instagram version where you're posing on a beach. The actual freedom to make choices based on what you want, not what you can afford. Freedom to leave a job that's killing your soul. Freedom to take 6 months off to figure out what you really want to do with your life. Freedom to start a business without the terror of losing everything. Freedom to help a friend or family member who's struggling. Freedom to retire early if you want. Freedom to keep working because you love it, not because you have to. That's what's on the other side of $20,000. Not immediate retirement, not instant wealth, but the beginning of real freedom. Most people spend their entire lives working for money, stressing about money, fighting with their spouse about money, making decisions they hate because of money. What if you could flip that script? What if money worked for you instead? That's not some fantasy reserved for trust fund kids or lottery winners. That's what happens when you understand these principles and actually implement them. The math is simple. The execution is hard. But it's absolutely possible. Every single person who's built significant wealth started somewhere, and for most of them, that somewhere was around $20,000. The first major threshold, the psychological turning point. The moment when survival mode ended and strategic thinking began. You're not too old. You're not too far behind. You're not starting from too difficult a position. Those are just stories you tell yourself to avoid doing the hard work. The truth is simpler and more empowering. You can do this. It will take time. It will require sacrifice. It will mean saying no to things you want in the short term so you can say yes to everything you want in the long term. But it's worth it. I promise you, it's worth it. Look, $20,000 isn't going to make you rich overnight. But it will fundamentally change how you think about money and opportunity. It's the difference between surviving and thriving, between reacting to life and designing it. And here's the thing. You can start today, not tomorrow, Not next month when things calm down. Not next year when you get that raise. Today. Even if it's just $50. Even if it's $20. The amount doesn't matter as much as the decision. The decision to become the type of person who builds wealth instead of the type of person who watches wealth slip away. Your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. They're looking back at this moment hoping you chose them over temporary comfort, hoping you chose freedom over fear. 5 years from now, you'll either be thanking yourself or asking yourself why you didn't start when you had the chance. So, which version of you do you want to be? If this video changed how you think about money, hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into financial psychology, wealth-building strategies, and the real mechanics of how money works, not the fairy tale version. Drop a comment below and tell me what's your current financial milestone. Are you going for your first $2,000? Your first $20,000? Already past that and heading for $100,000? Let me know where you're at in your journey. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's stuck in survival mode and doesn't know how to get out, share this video with them. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone isn't money. It's perspective. Start building that foundation today. Because your future self is counting on you. Trust me, they'll thank you for it. And I'm Pot Wall Street.